Hi, I'm Clint with Scottish Clans. Thanks for joining me for a discussion on how to pick a tartan for your kilt. Now, there's a very specific audience I'm aiming this at. Now, anybody strolling along looking through the titles of these YouTube videos can maybe find this and think it'd be interesting. But specifically, I'm going for people who they've decided to get a kilt, and now they didn't decide which tartan to get it in. Now, but if they have a last name like Campbell or McLaren, it's a lot more straightforward of a choice. And I know there's still choices between ancient and modern and hunting and weathered, but you're a lot farther down the road than somebody who doesn't have a Scottish last name like myself. The Edwards is my last name. We came from Llanwenog in Cardiganshire, Wales, or Ceredigion, if you, I guess, are being really Welsh about it. And I don't even know if I said that right, but hopefully I got close. Anyway, so I got to go a little bit farther up my family tree to find my Scottish ancestors. All right, so once upon a time I did that when I was young, and that's what got me all wound up about Scottish stuff, especially Scottish clans. I found some McFarlanes back up in there who immigrated out west to Utah in the 1850s. And so when it came time to get a kilt, and through USA Kilts, I decided to get the 5-yard wool kilt, and then I got it in McFarlane hunting, and so that was a pretty straightforward process. Well, those 5-yard wool kilts are nice kilts, and you can see where I'm at. I'm out in the hills and hiking along, and you can get it caught on a tree branch or get a little dirt on it or whatever, and you've got a kilt that's that nice, and you don't really want to drag it through stuff like that. So I made the decision to get a second kilt, a casual kilt, which is a cheaper kilt, which is fine because that's exactly what it's for. It's not as expensive material. It's not a wool kilt. It's a blend, and I'm not into all the different, I don't know a lot about the different materials, but it's a little bit more dirt friendly and a little bit more resistant to tear and brush and things like that. Okay, here's the trick. So we got two things to navigate here. One is which branch of my family. Well, I got other Scottish surnames in my family tree. I've got Brodie and Boyd and Lusk, and each of those has a tartan I could grab a hold of. Catch is, when you go with the casual kilt, you don't have as broad a range of tartans to choose from. So now it gets a little tricky because they didn't have any of those ones I just mentioned. All right, so how did I pick? Well, William McFarlane married Margaret McCormick, and that's the couple that emigrated out here. William McFarlane was from the Clan McFarlane originally, but his ancestors had been settled in County Tyrone, Northern Ireland for a few generations. Then he, as a young man, moves back to Scotland, works as a drover, taking the cattle from the Highlands down to lowland markets, and he stays overnight with the McCormick family. Now, this McCormick family was a Fife family. And McCormick's not a Fife name. In fact, McCormick is not even that common in Scotland. It's way more common in Ireland. I did try to track this down, and I didn't actually trace my ancestry, but I did find that the MacLeans of Lochbuie somehow found themselves dispossessed of their castle of Moy down in Lochbuie on the southern part of the Isle of Mull. And they called out to friends they had over in Ireland of the surname McCormick, who came across, helped them get their castle back, and they were long friends after that. So I could go with the MacLean of Lochbuie tartan, but they didn't have it in the casual kilt, I don't think, at the time. Maybe also I wasn't even that certain, because I didn't actually connect my ancestors back to Mull. Okay, and after the fact that I chose this tartan, I found out the McCormicks, the Buchanans have certain McCormicks attached to them too, and I don't know the story behind that. Okay, so what do you do? There's the limited options for tartans in the casual kilt, and my McCormick side of the family comes from Fife. Like I said, they're not a Fife name, but guess what? They'd intermarried with the other Fife families, and that whole branch of the family is Fife as far back as the records go on that side. Well, that's interesting. So guess what I decided to do? This tartan right here that you're seeing me wear, my casual kilt, is a Macduff hunting tartan. And those of you who are spun up on your Scottish history know the Macduffs were the Earls of Fife anciently. Later, it would pass over to the Stuarts. But I just decided to go with the Macduff hunting. Why? At the end of the day, I like the tartan. And I did want some connection to my family. Now, you know what? You don't have to have a connection to your family. I live in the United States of America, and I can get whatever tartan I want. Nobody checks your pedigree. I don't think they do this in Scotland or anywhere else. Nobody's checking your pedigree and your family history and your genealogy to make sure that you link up with whoever you're wearing. So if you don't, but I think most of us want to find a connection between our family and the tartan that we're wearing, but that was a connection. Now you might be thinking that's kind of tenuous. Here's why I don't care. Because first of all, the Scots weren't even, the earlier evidence of them actually, like actual depictions of them wearing something that may be a kilt, at their earliest go back to the late 1500s. The concept that certain tartans represent certain kindreds is much more recent than that. And so it's kind of anachronistic to get wrapped around the axle and make sure that, oh my gosh, you don't have the blood of that family in you and you're wearing that tartan. So nope, I don't have any MacDuff blood. At one point in time, that I know of, I should say. It's hard to make absolute statements. But at one point in time, my ancestors, maybe not even the McCormicks, maybe they came in later, but we just can't trace it back. But I probably have Fife ancestors somewhere who were in Fife at the time the MacDuffs were the earls there. They would have adhered to them as their superiors, right? Remember that the whole clan thing, not everybody's related within a clan, right? There's some people within that clan who would answer the call to a certain chief who weren't necessarily related to him. And so that's a connection I made. And I guess at the end of the day, I wanted some family connection, but I didn't get wrapped around the axle about, gosh, what is the exact connection and does it fit in the time periods and all that stuff? So I'm telling you that because maybe that'll open you up if you're caught in this decision at this point in getting a kilt and you're stalled out on what tartan to get, is that don't get wrapped around the axle about it. It's a fairly recent concept that certain tartans match up with certain kindreds. And you know what, if you want to learn more about that, you can go to USA Kilts and Celtic Traditions on YouTube. That's their YouTube handle. And they've got some content on the whole history. That's their business, is the kilts. And they're not the only ones on there that know about it, but they've got a ton of content on their channel. So if you want to go check them out, then you could spend your time in worse ways, for sure. They've got some content specifically on that I know about. So yeah, that's how I picked my MacDuff hunting. And it wasn't very straightforward, but there is some family connection, and maybe it's as strong as a lot of others out there too, once you really boil down to it. Here's a little warning before I wrap this up. Okay, so you've got a last name. I'm gonna use Wilson. I hate to always pick on the Wilsons, but it's not because I don't like them, it's because it's an easy case in point for this idea. So your last name is Wilson, so you're gonna go on some Scottish website, maybe a jewelry site, I don't even know, where people get all their information, and they're gonna say, oh yeah, Wilsons were a sept of the guns. Well, some Wilsons were, and some had nothing to do with the guns. Will was a common name, or William, and so there was a lot of sons of Will out there. Some of them were connected to the guns, some of them weren't. So do not think that checking that website out and it says, hey, the Wilsons were a sept of the guns, is a replacement for doing your own genealogy. You'll want to trace your own family back, and if it lands in the territory somewhere in the vicinity of where the guns held sway, then you're probably on for pretty solid ground. Another couple of instances just off the top of my head that fit that are there's Nielsen's that were connected to the Mackays. There was Allens and Allensons that were connected to the McFarlands, but Allen's not a super rare name that was only affiliated with McFarland. So definitely you want to dial that genealogy in before, if you care, if you really want to make that connection, but some of you it's not that important, or you've already made the decision, you already have that, and in that case, don't sweat it. Because like I said, it's a little bit anachronistic to get wrapped around the axle about it, but hope you enjoyed that, guys. Doing this, taking the time to put out this content, also my podcast, which there's way more information on my podcast. I'm trying to keep these YouTube videos short. It takes time, it takes resources, and some of those resources cost money. So I just started up a Patreon account. It's patreon.com/Scottish Clans, and go on there if you want to contribute to the effort here. I also have a what they call a mini online course. Think about it in terms of a shortened lower division college course on the origins of the Scottish clans. That's coming out sometime this year. that's in the process. So hopefully that'll benefit some of you who want to really dig into that. Like I said, if you want more information, go check out the podcast, Scottish Clans, same name, and you can find that. I'll include links to that in the Patreon below. And until next time, Marschen leven drasta.